Okay. Councillor Sharp. Oh. Right. Good afternoon. I am Councillor Mary Locke. I will be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee B of the Licence and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can you please all mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure? Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members unless you are the person speaking? This is to reduce bandwidth. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phones on silent and ensure they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios, TVs, etc. Thank you for that. I'm speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It is vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm that this is a public meeting and therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. It will be webcast for subsequent broadcast via the Council's meeting YouTube site via the link in the agenda, and members of the press and public may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items. Members are reminded that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies and notifications and nominee members. Apologies have been submitted on behalf of Councillor Diane Donaldson, and I, Councillor Locke, have been nominated as substitute chair. Can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect of AK Supermarket, 868 Washwood Heath Road, Washwood Heath, Birmingham, B8 2NG. I'll begin with some introductions. As stated, I am Councillor Mary Locke and I am chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Mike Sharp and Councillor Adam Higgs. Also present in this meeting are the following officers: Licensing Officer Bipinda Nandra.
Good morning, Chair.
Good afternoon.
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon.
Committee Manager Katie Townsend.
Good afternoon, Chair.
And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampalai.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Rob Edge, Licensed Leader on behalf of the applicant.
Is Mr. Hassan Hussain with you?
He was due to be with me. Unfortunately, a member of staff is sick at the shop and he's had to replace him at the shop, but he sends his sincere apologies, Chair.
That be noted. Next, those making representations. Mr. Ali.
Afternoon, Chair. I've submitted my application. I won't be saying anything here in person, if that's okay.
Could I ask if any persons making represent wish to withdraw their representation at this stage of the hearing. I'll take those now. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee procedural rules set out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may, at my discretion, amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place on the line, but wish to assure you that all such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We will be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access to the chat function for any reason, please use your raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. That button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name? Officers will also type their job titles. The meeting will not proceed until you all have done so. Is that everyone? Has everyone done so, Katie?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Please keep the chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. If any participant has dialed in on audio telephone rather than Microsoft Teams, please speak now to confirm that you can hear and be heard. With the exception of the subcommittee members, please keep your cameras off unless you are the person speaking. If there are problems with bandwidth which cause difficulties with the sound, I may, at my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now. Thank you. I'll briefly outline the procedure which we will follow at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, Bhupinder Nandra, will present the report. Then the applicant and their representative the representative will be able to present the case. We will then ask if this could be kept for approximately 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be able to make their case, again, approximately 20 minutes, which will be allowed for that part of the hearing. And I also ask parties to speak slowly and clearly as possible, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meetings is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time someone else is turned to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, please signify this by using the chat function set out on the right-hand side of the screen. You are viewing this meeting on the meeting manager, which the meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which the questions are dealt with. Additionally, you may also wish to seek notification to notify a question or point verbally in the usual way at this appropriate time. So at any point in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate moment. If at any point you cannot hear or having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they just said. It is therefore important that you use the chat function as soon as you are unable to hear the person speaking. It may be that the problem is caused by people still having microphones on or cameras on, which creates interference. So I will remind everyone to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras when you are not the person speaking. Could I point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask the parties to wait in this meeting whilst members of the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within the Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note that if at any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I will ask you to all mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time this meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that the members need to clarify any point, you will be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. Notification of the determination of the application will be sent out to all parties within 5 working days. I hope this is reasonably straightforward. So with that, can I ask the licensing officer, Bhupinder Nandra, to present the report as slowly and clearly as possible, if you please.
Thank you, Chair. Jangir Hussain applied on the 6th of October 2021 for the grant of a premises licence for AK Supermarket 868 Washwood Heath Road, Washwood Heath, Birmingham, B82NG. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises to operate from 8 AM until 10 PM Monday to Sunday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 8 AM until 11 PM Monday to Sunday. Representations have been received from other persons, which are attached at Appendices 1 to 7. The application is attached at Appendix 8 and site location plans at Appendix 9. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, or to refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would the applicant, would the representative of the applicant like to make their presentation now, please?
Thank you, Chair. Acting for the applicant, I have given full regard to the following: the representations made against the licensing application, the licensing objectives as set out in the Licensing Act 2003, the Council Statement of Licensing Policy, as well as the Home Office guidance issued under the Section 182 of the Act. I have attempted to mediate with those who have objected by writing to each of them individually. To date, I didn't receive any replies, which means mediation could not be conducted. The applicant and his business have suffered much, like many other businesses during COVID, and he now wishes to offer a wider range of products to increase sales, but doing so and showing due diligence in his operations to the licensing objectives. He has always tried to make the business something special for local people by being in a convenience store, but also with a butchery department offering a wide range of products. The licensing of this premises is something that he has taken very seriously. He could have submitted the licence application himself. Instead, he has chosen to employ a licensing consultant to complete the process and offer guidance to him on the Licensing Act and the operating conditions attached to the licence. It's a popular shop where many customers have asked if they would sell alcohol. Predominantly, the request was for bottles of wine. It should be noted that of the 8 responsible authorities, none considered it necessary to object or to ask for amendments to the conditions within the operating schedule of the application. I believe the reason for this is that there is a strong operating schedule to support this application, and there are policies and procedures in place to support a well-run establishment. And finally, the hours are very minimal for this type of premises. The applicant has said he will always demonstrate due diligence in all he does to uphold the licensing objectives, and this has been demonstrated by his request for a noise management plan to be implemented to ensure there is no public nuisance. The following documents or policies are in place at the premises in order to uphold the licensing objectives and to ensure it's well run, safe and compliant. Noise monitoring plan, challenge 25 and signage, a refusals log, DPS authorization, staff training and operations manual, and customer signage requesting that customers give consideration to local residents when entering and leaving the store. There is a strong management team within the premises who have always consulted with responsible authorities and have been fully accepting of any advice given by any of these bodies. This is not a vertical drinking establishment and not one that will operate within the nighttime economy. It's a small convenience store offering high quality food and beverage to its clientele. This concludes my submission unless there are any questions from members. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions from members? Councillor Higgs? Councillor Higgs, have you got any questions?
I think he might have froze.
Councillor Sharp, have you got any questions?
No, thanks, Chair. I think Councillor Higgs' computer might have gone wonky.
Yeah, Chair, it looks like Councillor Higgs is frozen. Oh, he's leaving. We'll just wait for him to come back, Chair.
Just pause. I have no questions, but I'll wait for Councillor.
I think the computer chair is having a Doctor Who moment.
Chair, Councillor Higgs is back.
Apologies, Chair, my laptop crashed.
Okay, have you got any questions, Adam? Did you hear it all?
I heard most of it. Probably, I don't know what point you got to when I crashed out. You were probably about halfway through it.
I'm quite happy, if it's okay with you, Chair, to repeat it for the benefit of Councillor Higgs. If
you wouldn't mind, I think that would be
Yes,
beneficial.
Yes, please.
Apologies for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go from the beginning because I don't believe that my submission was very long, and that guarantees that you've not missed anything, Councillor. So I'd said that I'd given full consideration to the Licensing Act 2003, the Council Statement of Licensing Policy, as well as the Home Office guidance issued under the Section 182 of the Act. I've attempted to mediate with those who have objected individually in writing and didn't receive any replies, which means that unfortunately mediation could not be conducted. The applicant has suffered, much like many other businesses during COVID, and wishes now to offer a wider range of products to increase sales at his business, but doing so showing due diligence to the operations and upholding the licensing objectives. He's always tried to make the business something special for his customers by being a convenience store with a butchery department, offering a wide range of products to his customers. The licensing of this premises is something that he has taken very seriously. He could, as the owner, have submitted the application himself. Instead, he's chosen to employ a licensing consultant to complete the process and offer guidance to him on compliance within the Licensing Act 2003 and the production of policies. It's a popular shop where many customers have asked, could he sell alcohol, predominantly requesting wine. It should be noted that of the 8 responsible authorities who are the experts for the licensing authority, none considered it necessary to object or amend any of the conditions within the operating schedule of this application. I believe the reason for this is that it's a strong operating schedule to support the application, and there are policies and procedures in place to support a well-run establishment. And finally, the hours are considered to be very reasonable by the responsible authorities for a premises of this type in this area. The applicant will always demonstrate due diligence in all he does to uphold the licensing objectives, and this has been demonstrated by his request for a noise management plan to ensure there is no public nuisance. The following documents or policies are in place at the premises in order to uphold the licensing objectives and ensure it's a well-run, safe and compliant premises. A noise monitoring plan, challenge 25 and signage, a refusals log, DPS authorisation, staff training and operations manual, and customer signage requesting that those using the premises enter and leave showing consideration to neighbours. There is a strong management team within the premises who have always consulted with responsible authorities and have been fully accepting of any advice given by these bodies. This is not a vertical drinking establishment, and it doesn't operate within the nighttime economy. It's a small convenience store offering high quality food and beverage to its clientele. This concludes my submission unless there are any questions, Councillor. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Councillor Higgs?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can those make representations? Please present their case now, Mr. Ali.
Hi, Councillor Locke. I've already made my representations in writing through Isle of Rock Community Forum, Board and Business Association, and also JAVSB 8FC as well are some of the other ones that have also done so. I think you should have that. If you can confirm that you received, then that's fine. I've got nothing more to add.
Okay then, thank you. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Councillor Sharp?
No, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Higgs?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Do those now this is the closing submissions. Do those making representation wish to make a closing submission? Mr. Ali?
Hi, Councillor Locke. Yeah, the only thing I will say is someone who's a local resident there, there has been significant amount of people congregating outside of that vicinity where the shop is located, and we have worked hard with the local sergeant, with the PCSOs, with the shopkeepers and the MP, and we've got it to a reasonable place now, and everyone is concerned with the license being given, that further people will be loitering and causing antisocial behaviour, which has now been brought to a minimum. Thank you.
Does the applicant's representative wish to make a closing submission?
Just a very short one, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Just to emphasise that these are very reasonable hours from 0800 until 2200, that there are strong policies and procedures in place to uphold the licensing objectives, that none of the responsible authorities sought to object or amend conditions to this application, and that there was a solid effort to engage with those who'd objected at the request of the applicant. There's a very robust operating schedule within the application, and as was mentioned by one of the objectors, that there are problems with other nearby premises. I think it referred specifically to 2 public houses, which seem to cause some antisocial behaviour within the area. Just to say that obviously these must be dealt with by enforcement without prejudicing the application to this premises. The applicant is aware of those issues and believes that the conditions within the application are sufficient to address this, and that, as members know, each application should be judged on its own merit, and we can't forecast what might happen going forward, but the applicant has said that he will ensure he personally monitors that people don't congregate outside the premises and don't cause a nuisance. That concludes my final submission, Chair.
Yeah. I will now ask all parties to leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members and committee lawyer and committee manager will go into the private session with the subcommittee while the subcommittee makes its decision. You will be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Thank you. Stop the live stream.
Thank you, Chair. Members.